Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Deebo and The Donks. It has been a while. I'm imagining a lot has changed in our lives the last couple of years, both you and myself. Hope everything is well for all of you. This will be kind of a brief one. Gonna have a little fun with sports as always. We are going to talk a little bit to start off about the Timberwolves. A quick little update there, of course, what you do and don't know and what your thoughts are on that. Then, of course, the NFL draft and the Vikings, of course, Minnesota. And, of course, we'll touch on the Twins there. Starting with the Timberwolves. Well, a lot of optimism just a short period of time ago when the Timberwolves had come back and beat Denver in Denver to advance against Dallas. And I know a lot of local experts, fans, were pretty optimistic going into this series because I think a lot of people were excited, obviously, because they had home court advantage. And I think also a lot of experts thought Dallas was a better matchup for us than Oklahoma City. And I probably agree with that. Oklahoma City, I think, would have probably given us I just think they have too much for us. And they're faster and bigger. Their bigs are huge. They're great. Holmgren, he can shoot from three, and he can be a problem down low, too, and on and on. And Alexander, I think, would have ran wild against us, even with Edwards really stepping up his defense, against Denver. And, of course, really has done, I think, as good a job as he can do against Dallas, but it just hasn't worked out. They've lost two heartbreakers in a row. A couple of minor errors by the Timberwolves in game two, with the switch. And we all know what happened after that with Dallas making a three to end it. You probably want your best defender on their best player on a last shot situation like that. I've heard talk about, maybe we should have fouled before they could even had a chance to get a three. To me, that's crazy talk. You don't put a team on the line to tie a game because they were down two. The Dallas Mavericks were. Not sure I really agree with that, but I can listen to it. The thing about sports is strategy changes over the years, and it also evolves, as we all know. Watch any football game or any football level, and you will see the strategies change over the years. Thought process, very simple stuff like when to go for it on fourth down. Used to be automatic punt, back in the day. And as they progress to, what exactly you should do at certain situations, game situations, and part of strategy, of course, is your score of the game, the flow of the game, and all that good stuff. But back to the Timberwolves, I think they're playing pretty decent against Dallas. I personally do. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I do believe that the Timberwolves, I haven't watched a ton of them the last few years because they've just been boring to me. What I mean by that is, they haven't really had a lot of success. And at the same time, the NBA itself has kind of lost me a little with it turning into what I call a three-point shooting contest. It's really, my goodness, these teams are taking 20, 30, 35, 40 threes a game. To me, that's crazy when half your shots are three-pointers. I understand the strategy and why you do it. And I believe it is one of the main reasons that scoring is way up in the NBA the last few years. Probably more exciting for the fans. And let's not forget, any sport now is now paying attention to daily fantasy. What I mean by that is casual fans, are going to be more interested in your sport if they have something on it. And daily fantasy people are doing that. They're driving their revenue up in the NBA and NFL primarily with the daily fantasy sports, and it's been a big deal for the leagues, and I understand how they've adjusted their rules to it. NFL games are at all-time highs in scoring, yards, everything. They've basically taken away defense in that, but with the NBA, I think it's followed that trend too. Scoring is way, way up. There's nothing abnormal about a team scoring 130 points in the regular season, which is insane. One thing about the Timberwolves that surprises me is how easily Dallas is getting to the scores they are. They're getting to that 110, 120 against them, and we are, statistically the best defensive team in the NBA by quite a stretch, actually, and showed that against Denver and the first-round opponent. I'm drawing a blank on the first-round opponent. We swept Phoenix, and really, really held them in check, and have not done that against Dallas. I think it's because Dallas is just, their effort is there. I think that Kidd has them going in the right direction as far as their effort and the way they're coached. And, their best two are better than our best two. Is that a fair comment? I think that statistically Irving's having a very good series, hitting big clutch shots, almost unguardable, let's be honest. He is so fast and still is at his age. I think he's in his early 30s and still can move quite well. And that's been a real problem for the Timberwolves, as you all know. I think the biggest difference in the entire series is our number two, if you will. It should be Towns because he is making a fortune. Has really just, he was like 0 for 8 in game 3 from 3, 0 for 9. He's shooting like 15% for the series from 3. I think that might be a good indicator that you might want to go down low and adjust. But I also understand the Timberwolves have a strategy and they have a way that they're trying to win. And having Towns down there, clogging up the middle might not be part of their strategy. And if that is true, I think that'd be a good idea to, pull him out of there. And they did in game 2. He sat like the last almost 5 minutes, which is insane, to have what is he making, $35 million max contract guy on the bench during game 2 of a home game in the Western Conference Finals, to me is a really bad sign if you're a Timberwolves fan. What can you do with Towns? Trade him for what? You have to have some value. He is an overall first-round pick. Or maybe he was second, I forget. But at the same time, he's a very, very high-round pick, and he has had success. He scores 20 a game. He'll get you 7, 8 rebounds a game. I think his defense is a real liability. Again, I don't think I'm sharing anything with anyone listening that this isn't going to blow your mind. We all know that Towns is very frustrating to watch. I have, for years, I have called him the softest big man I've ever seen in this sport. He's a big body, but he can be moved so easily with effort. And I'm not saying his effort's not there. I'm not in his head. I don't know how he works, but I do know that he just appears soft. He can be easily moved down in the paint. Maybe that's why they're playing him up and just having him offensively shoot threes, because he is wide open this entire series. He's probably had between 15 and 23 pointers uncontested and made like 3 of them. He's really had a bad series offensively and defensively, and I think he's the difference. What do you guys think? Do you think that maybe it's I don't know how it can be Edwards. What he's doing in flow of game, what he's doing defensively, what he's trying to do offensively. They're clogging up the middle. They're making sure he can't just drive to the hole nonstop. They are double teaming him constantly because he's talented, and that's what you do against the team's best player. And I think we all kind of agree that Gobert has had a tough series also, considering he's about 3-4 inches taller than anybody on the floor for Dallas. I think that's definitely frustrating for us fans. That size advantage should really matter down in the paint, but it hasn't. He hasn't done much. He's got his rebounds. He's got his 8 to 12 rebounds a game, and he's got a couple block shots and a steal here and there. But I think his turnovers are definitely up, and his scoring is really low. And he hasn't done defensively what we thought he would do. I don't blame him for not being able to cover Doncic on that 3-point shot. I'm not. That was a switch. That was supposed to be, I believe, Daniels on him, or possibly someone else. It did look to me like a perfect switch, and they wanted to get that matchup with Gobert, knowing there's no chance he can cover him up at the top of the key or at the 3-point line, and he couldn't. He looked silly on Doncic made a nice little move like he was going to drive to the basket and then just step back and had a wide open 3, which he's going to make 35% of the time. So good coaching by Dallas. Unfortunate circumstances, I think, for Minnesota. He could have missed it. He's going to miss that more than he makes it. and they would have won game 2, and that changes the complexity of the whole thing, and game 3 changes and strategy changes, but the shot went in, and that's how it goes. Superstars make big plays. And then game 3, towards the end, we played awfully. I don't have to tell you that. You know that. The Timberwolves were just bad game 3, I thought, throughout. I think there was many moments they could have taken that game over and got up 15 to 20 points, but they just couldn't get the shots to fall, and they were, I think, a little bit licking their wounds from game 2 still. I think it lasted. There was a lingering effect. I think the effort was there, don't get me wrong, but I really don't see anybody coming back from 3-0 in the NBA. But wouldn't that be cool if they did? It'd be legendary and quite a turnaround for us Timberwolves fans that have been around for 35, 40 years, however long they've been around. They've been around forever, since the 80s. And it's been a very difficult time being a Timberwolves fan. I believe I saw a stat in the offseason that the Minnesota Timberwolves have the worst winning percentage of any team of the major 4 pro sports in America. So that's hockey, basketball, baseball, and football. They have the worst winning percentage for a franchise in history. So it's been a tough run for us fans. And again, I've been a fan since the beginning, but the last, like I said, 5-6 years when the scoring went through the roof and it became a 3-point shooting contest, I didn't really see, and you really can't play defense. You can't hand check. They call body constantly. You really have to just move your feet and to do something that's very difficult to do. When the other player knows where he's going and you don't, without being able to touch him, it's going to be very difficult to guard him, as you all know. And that's kind of where the NBA's gone. So you can drive easily, and when you drive easily, you're going to pick up some traffic, and then someone's going to be open on a kick out to an easy, wide-open 3-point shot. I get it. It is what it is. I can't change it. I just I just lost interest. As most of you know, I'm far more of a hockey fan anyway. But when a local franchise or a team that I have some investment in emotionally is doing well, and I work in an entertainment industry where, it's always an advantage to have an understanding of what's going on locally. It's fun to watch. It is fun. It's been a fun playoffs. I'm sure for us fans and you real hardcore fans, I'm sure it's been very difficult the last week with the emotional ups and downs, going from winning that huge series against Denver and kind of having an assumption, I get it, that we're going to the finals, the actual NBA finals, be it against probably Boston, as we all think. And probably thinking, maybe having a mind frame, if we can go 6-7 games against Boston, win it or not win it, it's going to be a very successful year with a lot of optimism in the future. But getting beat by Dallas, if they get swept 4-0, that's going to be demoralizing for fans, and that's unfortunate. But, that's kind of how it goes as a Timberwolves fan, right, guys? Oofda. There are so many jokes about being a Timberwolves fan, but I won't share them because you've heard them all. Let's move on from that. Hopefully, the next time we talk, they are the NBA champions, but we shall see. They have a chance. You're not done till you're done. Let's talk fun. Let's talk some Vikings draft, because I know a lot of Vikings fans out there are very, very optimistic about our draft. And I'll let you know if I think that's good or bad, okay? Let's talk about the draft first, because I think most of us are just draft geeks. The NFL is so giant. It's number one in the United States by 1,000,000%, in my opinion. It is gigantuan as far as popularity. I was just saying to a coworker a couple of weeks ago, after the draft, that, gosh, it's pretty much Super Bowl, then draft, then playoffs as far as, I think, importance, watchability, excitement, all that stuff. I really believe it's that, and I don't think many people would argue with that. The viewership of a playoff game may be higher, but I just think the interest level, everybody's following the draft. They're following who's drafting who. Heck, there's people out there doing their own mock drafts and don't even get paid for it. They just do it for fun because it is exciting to try to predict and see what teams are due and really get to know the players that way. I mean, by the end of, early April or late March, everybody knows the top 10 players, and A lot of us hadn't even heard of them until that time, unless you watch a lot of college football. I do watch a lot of college football. I'm a college football geek, so I do know most of these players, but a lot of them I don't know very well. And that makes it fun because you will get to know them and watch them become superstars in the NFL, or unfortunately, sometimes you watch them fail. In the first round, we'll just kind of go real briefly here. We all know that Caleb Williams is going to be the number one pick. I've seen so many things about him being a bust possibly, and so many things about him being just unbelievable. You can believe the latter, in my opinion. I've watched him for 3 years in college, like a lot of you. I watched him at Oklahoma. He did anything he wanted. Oklahoma, completely different offense for him because they catered to him being an 18-year-old. And he ran the ball far more because he is athletic, but still threw the ball pretty efficiently and had a successful season. After that, he obviously transferred to USC, and he had a Heisman season. And then you take a look at his season last year, and you may look at it at glance and go, well, they went like 8-6 and this and that. Well, you might want to take a little deeper look at it, because he really had a much deeper draft or deeper season than that, because he literally had no offensive weapons. They had all graduated and went to the NFL. He had one really good receiver. He will be in the NFL this year, but teams were able to double team there and scheme against it, and Caleb had to use his legs a little bit more this year, and he did. And he had a very successful season throwing and running the ball. His stats are very, very good. They're just not Heisman good like they were the year before. So I think there's a little bit, is he really the number one guy? I think a lot of people were skeptical about it, but not experts. Anybody who saw him play knew who the number one pick was, and I'm being serious. People who were college coaches, people that coached against him, people that have film on him, people that saw him at a combine, people that saw him at a workout, they watched him play and they walked away knowing that that's the number one pick. That's the best player in this draft as far as we know at the quarterback position. And we shall see. 5 years from now, he could be a bust. Anybody could. It does happen, but the Bears have done a lot to, us North, I call us North Division fans, us North fans here, with the Bears, Packers, Lions, and Vikings. We pay close attention in the draft to our opponents, and we know that the Bears drafted very well and have also got DJ Moore in a trade, so they are going to have weapons for Caleb Williams. Even drafted a lineman, so I do believe he's set up for success his first couple of seasons. We shall see. Second pick's Jaden Daniels. We all know Jaden Daniels. He's terrific, and we all know he's terrific. The thing that I think is most interesting about the top three picks, Williams, Daniels, and May, is that it looks in the mock drafts and on paper like those are not really separated players. And if you take a closer look and you were to do a little bit of studying, you might find that to be quite untrue. Drake May is interesting because he comes from a different cut. His grandfather was a high school and college football coach. His father was a high school football coach. He's, knowledge of football is in his blood, and he probably had many conversations at a dinner table in high school and before that, or in the garage or in the backyard with his father, being very involved in his sports life, showing him, or talking coach speak, we call it. You just drop terms and teach your people that you are close to in that situation. You just have way more conversations than you would have obviously in just a regular player coach situation, where he's going to be able to constantly educate. It just may blew away a lot of people in the rooms from when I was reading, as far as the QB rooms, when they were interviewing him, because he knew just about everything on film. Now, statistically, his 2 years there were okay. He's playing in the ACC. It's certainly not the cream of the crop. And he didn't blow anybody away with his stats or anything. He did have a couple of NFL receivers. So if you look at that and you be pessimistic, you might think he might be a possible bust, if you will. But we shall see. I would lean towards that, being honest, watching him with my own eyes in about 4 to 5 games over the years, not being all that impressed, even against my Gophers. He was good, and he looked like the better player on the field, but he didn't look like an NFL player to me at the time. But we shall see. He could end up being the best of the best. We don't know that. That's the fun of this. Daniels, we all know he's the Heisman Trophy winner this year. He has all the stats. He has all the talent. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him in Washington because I don't think they're surrounding him with what he may need, but we shall see. Again, another fun one. We know the rest of it. I'm not going to break down the entire draft. That would be crazy for you guys. You'd probably be annoyed out of your mind. We do know number 10, the Vikings traded up to get J.J. McCarthy, and a lot of people think that was the guy they wanted all along. So, I heard they wanted everybody. I heard they wanted May. I heard they wanted Daniels, and I heard they wanted Williams, and they knew they wouldn't get Williams, but I heard they wanted them all, and you really don't know what you hear. You don't know what's being planted by a GM or somebody in the Vikings. You don't know what's being sent out there, which makes it kind of fun. That's what the draft's all about. I did hear and read recently, I think it was The Score or Sporting News reported that the Vikings were doing everything in their power to get to the number 5 pick and trade to get Malik Neighbors, who's the wide receiver from LSU. He played with Jay Daniels. Many think he's the best receiver in the draft, and that's pretty high praise considering Marvin Harrison Jr. was a higher pick than him and is considered a can't miss. We wanted him, and we wanted him bad if this story is true. So bad that we were going to trade J.J. Jefferson for him. To me, that's insanity, and I think a lot of you would probably go, yeah, that is crazy. Like, why would you do that? Why would you even talk about doing that? I know that you do the math. JJ's going to make a fortune. He's going to have the biggest contract in receiver history. It's going to really cut into your salary, your cap. And I could see if you think Neighbors is just a step down and you try what they tried just recently when they got J.J. Jefferson, and it worked out so well by letting, I'm drawing a blank on his name, he went to Buffalo. We all know who he is. When they let him go, he just left Buffalo. We kind of had a problem with that, and we just took J.J. Jefferson, and to be honest with you, it was an upgrade. We know that. However, the difference is, what's the difference between J.J. Jefferson and, say, Neighbors? If Neighbors is equivalent or anywhere near his level, then you would want him because he's going to make significantly less on a rookie contract than J.J. Jefferson is going to make. And as you all know, that would free up a lot of money and capital and be good for the Vikings so they can be better on their roster. Their overall roster would have more talent or at least more spent on it. I would agree if you're trying to get the number 1 pick, or maybe if you're trying to get Harrison, I can kind of listen to that, but anybody else I wouldn't even consider trading J.J. Jefferson for unless it's a pile of draft picks or something. I think you just bite the bullet, you sign him, and you figure it out. I think that's going to have to be their plan. We shall see. But I think that sets up, we all think that J.J. McCarthy, the experts are telling us he's got great weapons, and he does. He's got 2 very, very good receivers, including maybe the best in the game. And with JJ, and he has incredible talent at tight end with Hawkinson. It seems like the offensive line is steady. They went and got the Green Bay running backs, so they think that they upgraded at that position. And my God, they upgraded 1,000,000% because their last running back room was just awful. I think it was really the difference in the season last year. So I think they're going to be okay as long as they get healthy there. I think he'll have a pretty successful season. I think he'll have a shot at Rookie of the Year. But he could also be benched by Game 5 because he's 22 years old, and that can happen. The NFL is a gigantuan jump from college football, as you all know. Everybody knows this. It's not, uncommon knowledge. I know you all know that. I'm not saying anything that blows your mind. It's pretty fun, though. Let's kind of break down and move on to what I know you want to hear anyway. Let's talk about the Vikings and the whole fun of that and where that's going, because we do know that they had a very light draft. I don't have to tell you guys that. We all know they had a very light draft because they had to trade picks in the last couple of years to move up and get players that they wanted and needed. And I'm kind of curious what you think about that. Obviously with the J.J. McCarthy trade up to 10, they didn't have to lose too much there. They gave up a bit more than I thought they were going to have to. But if that's your guy, if that's your quarterback, you had him in a room, you watched him study film, you watched him throw, you had conversations with him, you know his intelligence levels, you got to kind of hope and trust that you're Your draft room did a good job on that, and if that's the guy, then you don't worry about what you give up for him. You get it done, and I think they did. What I think most Vikings fans, though, are more excited about, in my opinion, from what I'm viewing and talking to hardcore Vikings fans, friends of mine, acquaintances, coworkers, is Dallas Turner, and we got him at 17, doing another trade up, and we did give up a lot for this trade up. And as far as draft picks go, but Dallas Turner is considered the best edge rusher in the draft. I think you all know that. I do believe that he is extremely talented, and it is a great pick. But he's young, and we can never really expect an edge guy to catch on right away. You got to give him time. Sometimes it takes a year or two, to get to the level that we're going to hope that he gets to as the best overall or top draft pick from that position. But we shall see. I do think he'll have a successful season as far as a rookie goes. I think he'll have a lot of chances if the offense is doing well to get a lot of up the field rushes and get a lot of sacks, or at least a lot of pressures, and cause some trouble and learn how it is to beat these incredible tackles in the NFL, the offensive tackles. That's a fun pick. I think those two picks alone, I think a lot of Vikings fans are like, that's all we needed. I don't agree, but it is fun. Going after that, I won't get too into the draft because, to be honest with you, I'd never heard of any of these guys. We waited till the 4th round for our next pick because of trades, and we went with Kyrie Jackson from Oregon. He's a cornerback. Know nothing about him. We picked an old-tackle from Oklahoma. We took a kicker in the 6th round. And then, of course, we took our 7th-round picks were a D-tackle from Texas A&M Commerce. That's not Texas A&M. That's actually a Division I AA team. And then, of course, we took a center from Wake Forest. Those are gambles because you're in the 7th round. We all know that. But the draft, I think we're all feeling very optimistic about it as Vikings fans. And I kind of agree. I think that J.J. McCarthy might be the best quarterback in this draft 7 years from now. I think he'll at least be one of the top 3, and we shall see. That shall be a lot of fun to watch. How it translates to wins next year, that's the important thing for a Vikings fan. And what are we going to do with J.J. Jefferson? Are we going to let him go? Are we going to trade him and let somebody else pay him? What do you think we'll get for him? Are we going to get a first-rounder? Because it didn't sound like that was his value, which value on players is just so underrated, the NFL holds draft picks, their actual value, so highly. To get a pick or move up to get a pick is just, you have to give up so much. And I think a lot of you would think like I think, is like, if you have J.J. Jefferson and you're going to pay the hell out of him, but he's like 25 years old. He already knows how to beat people in this league. He already is going to show you the next 4 to 5 years. He's top 4 or 5 in this league at that position. It's established. You go to get Neighbors or even Harrison, there's no guarantees. They've shown nothing and done nothing in this league. So, I don't know, maybe you think you go with Jefferson. What do you guys think? Sign him, pay him, or try to get some value and somehow trade him with a little bit of value left? Because he has 1 season under contract here, and then he's a free agent. And this is when you want to sign him. That's the NFL draft. There's a lot more we could talk about, but again, nobody wants to listen to that for too long. Last thing we'll talk about real quickly is the Minnesota Twins. And I'm not seeing a lot of buzz locally for the Twins, being that they had a nice season last year and then won a playoff series for once, and all the stuff that they've done positively last year, found some pitching, and then they let Sonny Gray go. And I thought that was a huge loss, and it has been. Their starting pitching actually has been good, but boy, it'd look a lot better with Sonny Gray back there, as our number 2 or 3 guy. Lopez is up and down as one of our pitchers. And I think the rest of the pitching staff, Gray has been pretty good. Ryan's been pretty good, but they're not lights out. Still pretty good staff with those 3. And after that, you just fill it in. And I think that's okay. I think we're probably okay starting pitching. Wouldn't mind a 4th guy that's more consistent. But at the same time, they've had a pretty good overall pitching staff. Duran's been a little up and down because of his injuries. I'm going to give him a pass. I think you guys would agree. Ober's like as a starter is like lights out or nothing. I don't think there's an in-between with him right now, but not a bad number 4 starter. Very hard to argue that. And Chris Paddock's kind of our 5th guy. I don't know. He's had a couple good starts, so it's a 5th starter. I'm not going to get too excited either way. I think our bullpen, I think that Sands and I think that Theobald and Stalmont have really been the weakness of it, and they were going to probably be the strength of it, especially when we lost Duran and we had to change everything and put Jax as our closer, who was our 8th inning guy, and kind of adjust. But I think everybody's taken a turn at being bad. That does happen in bullpens. Don't get me wrong. It's an overall look here. It's a 162 season, as you know. Take a look at this, after 80 or 100 games, it may be too early to worry about relievers. They're young, most of them, so you got to kind of let them develop and learn what works against the best players in baseball when you're in the 9th inning or in the 8th inning in a high pressure situation. Our other starters, Richardson, he's a young 24-year-old kid. I believe he's 23, 24. He's 23. He's our 5th, 6th starter. He's had some success the last month. He's started to up his Ks, and he's getting out of the 4th inning into the 5th inning and kind of getting in trouble in the 5th and early 6th. But he's progressed out of that 3rd and 4th inning trouble, which is, buying him an extra inning or 2 helps his ERA helps the team. So I do believe that Richardson may have a future with this team over the next couple of years, and that's exciting. It's always fun to, see these young guys start to develop, and we already know, in my opinion, that Ryan is a stud and supposed to be our future. Now, he's getting old fast. He's already 27, so hopefully he can take that big step this year and kind of finish it off and become like a Cy guy, Cy Young Award kind of guy. Do you think he will? I don't know. I'm kind of suspect. We do know that Lopez, in most people's opinion, is our stud. That is our number 1. That's our go-to. And he kind of proves that. He has that big strikeout in leverage situations. He has that moxie, I think. And I think that that's a very important thing to have as a pitcher, as we all know. So I think the Twins are okay at pitching. I think they're where they were supposed to have their strength. This year was supposed to be defense, and that has not shown through. Doesn't help that Royce Lewis has been hurt since the 2nd at bat of the season. Exciting news. He is playing with the Saints, and he is about ready to be called up by the Twins here. I think he's got probably 1 or 2 more games down there, and he will be being called up hopefully by this weekend. That'll be exciting. That'll be nice to have that bat. We all know how exciting he is, with all of his power and speed, and hopefully he can stay healthy. Buxton, speaking of healthy, he just got back. He looks a little better than he did pre-injury. Hopefully he can continue to progress. I think Julian's been up and down, our second baseman, had some great moments. We're optimistic about him. Nice to see Miranda getting called back up after looking just atrocious early in the year. That happens. He's young. Sometimes you're just not ready. Santana started out terrible. He was our first baseman. He is assigned. We signed him as a free agent, and he started out just atrocious. He's batting like 120, no home runs, and he has caught fire. I think he's got like 7 home runs in 3 weeks, and is getting big RBIs. And I think I think he'll settle in at 25 to 30 home runs, and that'll end up being a pretty good signing. Our role guys like Farmer and Castro have done a pretty dang good job stepping up at times. Correa's been up and down, mostly because of injury. Again, we all know his injuries are the reason he didn't get that max contract. I believe it was with the Giants, and the reason that he was let go in the first place by the Astros is because of his injury history, and it's very serious injury history. We got kind of a deal on him. We're not paying him a ton as far as his position and his stats go, but he hasn't done much this year. I think he still can, and hopefully he will. I think our outfield is not bad. When you have Margot, Kirilloff, Kepler, Buxton, Larnach, it's good to see Buxton playing the outfield again. I think they have to use that advantage. He's just too talented not to do that. If he's just going to bat 220 and hit 24 home runs and strike out a bazillion times, at least let him play the outfield. What are we losing then, as an offensive player? He has not become the offensive player that they thought he would be. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. Let him play the outfield. Let him run all over the field. Let him ram into fences. I don't care. But if he can save runs out there, that's something that most outfielders just can't do. They don't have the speed, and he does. So let's try it's even more important when we lost Michael Taylor, who was one of the best outfielders in baseball, quietly. And he showed it all last year. If you went to games, if you watched him live on TV, he saved a lot of runs for the Twins out there, roaming the outfield. And losing him, I think, has affected the team a little bit. If we look at the overall team, and we just did, Jeffers, of course, being the catcher, and Jeffers having a nice solid year. That's really exciting because, again, another 25, 26-year-old guy that needs to take that step up. You need to see that he's your future. You can rely on him for 2 to 3 more years. The Twins aren't as sunk as I thought they were. They obviously they had the long 12-game winning streak and then lost like 8 in a row, and you're like, okay, where are they going? But if you take a look at their standings, they're in the playoffs. They're the 3rd wild card. They're just a couple games out from the 1st wild card. The problem is their division is surprisingly good. I don't have to tell anyone that, Cleveland has won like 15 of 17 and 9 in a row. They lost today, thank goodness. And we are just 6 back of them in the loss column, which is all I follow in baseball. It's all that matters. That's not that far back. 6 back in May isn't the end of the world after Memorial Day. They got a real chance to catch them. We'll see. But Cleveland has played very, very well. They have the best record in baseball right now, I believe. Or right there. They're like a half game out. And Kansas City is the surprise. Kansas City is one again, they won 13 of 17, and they've won 8 of 10. And again, we beat them today, the Twins, which was nice. Almost blew it in the 9th, but we got it done. Duran had to come in and give up a couple hits and then got the save, but it was ugly. Huge win. They're just 4 games ahead of us, 3 games in the loss column that matters. They've played, like 3 more games than us. But having Kansas City in front of us, I think, is at this late of the year, being that we're, nearly 60 games into the season, I think that's surprising. I do think that we will catch Kansas City, but I think their offensive lineup is one of the best in baseball statistically right now. And they're really doing well in that, and their bullpen's been pretty solid. They do have like 4 blown saves, but I think everybody probably does nowadays. Sorry about the ums. I say too many ums, and I even write it in my notes. Don't say It just means you're thinking, right? And we all know I don't do that well. I do believe that Cleveland's going to win the division. I thought that preseason because of their overall pitching, even though they lost their stud again. They've lost another number 1. It's happened like 5 years in a row for them, but they're just hitting the ball everywhere, and their bullpen is unhittable. And I think that's going to be tough to catch. I think we'll get near them, like I alluded to earlier. I think it'll come down to late September. And I think us in Kansas City will probably be playing for 2nd place and that wild card spot, which is good enough for me. If we can win 90 games, get that playoff spot, I'm okay with that. We're not spending money like the Orioles and the Yankees, and the Rangers. We don't do that. It's never going to be something we're going to do. We just have to accept that. So we have to do the best as what we can, hopefully during the trade deadline later on this year. If we're still 5-6 games above 500 like we are now or better, I think we will try to get a starting pitcher, and maybe that'll catapult us to catch the Indians, because that much pitching can pretty much bury you. If they got 5 good starters, the Twins, they're going to be tough they'll be tough to hold off. I do believe they will get to that 92, 93 wins, which will win the division. And we shall see. That's going to do it for this episode. I do have a couple other episodes I'm going to be doing real rapidly. One about rock and roll, kind of a follow-up to Rock and Roll's Dead, which was a fun podcast because I like to talk music anytime possible. And I do have a couple of poker ones that I have an idea on, but I have to reach out to a couple of people on that as far as so I can get the information that I need to do that. And that will do it for this episode. I do appreciate you listening. You all stay safe out there and take care.